This is the Ground Game Podcast, where we cover politics from the ground up. Here are your hosts, Tom LoBianco and Patrick Pfingsten.
Pretty quiet week in Washington, D.C., right?
It was super quiet. Nothing happened. Guaranteed.
What the heck is going on? I'm Patrick Pfingsten. This is Tom LoBianco. Welcome to the Ground Game Podcast. We're kind of varying up our format a little bit today. We're not going to go deep into a bunch of issues. We're going to talk really quickly about the appointments and nominations for Trump's cabinet. And then we've got a really great roundtable with a couple of independent journalists. Matt Laslo, who's a congressional reporter, writes on Substack, has askapol.com. Pablo Manriquez, migrantinsider.com, also covers Congress. We'll have a great conversation with those guys. First, though, Tom, WTF? the Trump nominations for the cabinet started. I would say okay, right? They weren't like completely normie, but it wasn't insane. And then somewhere just the wheels came.
Last week we saw the Susie Wiles picks, like the Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, and this week we saw the Steve Bannon and Roger Stone picks, like Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard for intelligence agencies. Some of this has to do, and I've been talking with my sources, re-upping with a number of Trump sources about what's happening. The effort to dismantle the Justice Department is real. That is a real thing.
Of course it is. He's under indictment from like 100 different places. He wants to get rid of all criminal charges against him.
And they'll use it.
And Gaetz is the ultimate bootlicker.
Yeah, and they will use Gaetz based on my sourcing. It almost doesn't matter who you put in there as the Attorney General for this. One of my guys described it as it was the longest short list on the entire transition team for a top cabinet pick. And Trump decided he didn't like any of them. And then he talked to Gaetz. And Gaetz like, I'll burn the whole thing to the ground. And he's like, yeah, you. And I take that to be real based on everything that we've seen. So yeah, that's the state of things.
And he's going to get confirmed, right?
No, that's
so?
that they'll use recess. Remember this, I said this on the 24/7 News live stream question and answer yesterday. Remember that for Trump, the boundaries are the Constitution and laws. Tradition does not matter. Norms do not matter. If it can be done, it will be done. And that's the case here. They will use recess appointments. The question now is, how much does the Senate Republican Conference want to be its own thing, or do they want to be subjugated by Trump? And
they certainly haven't shown a track record of having spines. Right. So it's not like
I would not read.
Say this is.
I would not read. I'm going to disagree.
You are giving them way too much credit, pal.
I would look.
These are jellyfish.
Look at when he announced Matt Gaetz and Tulsi Gabbard. It was after they selected John Thune, who's one of their own. Don't be surprised.
They talk big, but they always fall in line. This is the history of the Republican Party in the last 9 years. Is they talk tough. Marco Rubio said, "I will never, ever, ever support Donald Trump ever" in 2016. Now he's going to be a Secretary of State. They all get in line. They always get in line. They have no god darn spine.
Actions, not words.
Their actions have backed it up for 9 years. 9 years. We've seen this over and over and over and over again. When they've said, "Oh, we don't believe in that kind of thing. We don't think that's the party that we stand behind. We don't think the president's doing the right thing here." And then whenever he puts the screws to them, they flop. They flop over. Wet freaking blankets.
We disagree on this one. I doubt it. I don't know yet. We've got to see where the reporting takes it. I mean, don't underestimate.
You got to lose 4, right? 4 Republicans if you're gonna stop Gaetz in a nomination. So I assume
the Gaetz thing will happen. That will happen. I mean that they're going to push for that. Okay, let me rewind.
That is important.
That's important.
stop recess appointments too by just keeping pro forma sessions every day.
Well, there's an argument for this, okay, which is that you can try that, but this is the Harry Reid filibuster argument. This is what McConnell said to Reid about ending filibuster on judicials, that eventually one day you will not have the reins of power. What do you want to do? What about when Democrats come in? What about a Democrat wins office in 2028? Okay. And they have the White House. And then the Senate says, well, we don't like AOC to be the border czar or whatever. And then the Democratic president gets to say, well, guess who set the precedent?
But that's if he's even able to use a recess appointment.
You can use recess appointments for a cabinet. It's 2 years. They become an acting.
No. I'm saying he can't do it right now because Thune would have to stop the pro forma sessions because they're not technically in recess. So that he can't do them unless Thune backs off.
Until yes, yeah, right. It depends on Thune. That's absolutely correct.
Which, if Thune backs off, you're just backing up my point that they're all freaking jellyfish. If Thune backs off. But then you're going to have to go through a confirmation battle, and I still don't see where you find 4 Republicans who vote no on Matt Gaetz because they're all jellyfish.
If
Murkowski, Collins, no one else.
Oh, really? There's some
no?
members.
They're going to talk tough in private. They've been talking tough in private since 2015.
Tom Tillis is out there saying he doesn't think that's a very good thing. I don't.
So did Cornyn. They're going to get in line. They're always going to get in line. I have zero faith. Maybe our boy Todd Young has some guts.
If it gets to a confirmation battle, yes. Okay, so, and you know exactly how legislative battles work. Legislative battles are you pick who are the people that you can cut loose, protected. This is how presiding officers operate a chamber. All right, this is how every legislature I've ever covered. The presiding officer and the leadership team decides these 3 are the ones who are going to vote no because they're fine doing it. The other ones don't have to. They'll vote yes just to say that they voted yes. I do not. This is not baked. And my theory on this, and from what folks I talk to on this, don't buy into the outrage, but be aware. Keep a level head.
It's all fake. It's all fake outrage. I will continue to have zero faith in Capitol Hill Republicans until they give me a reason to have some faith, because they've given me none at this point. This is bad, though. I mean, these are bad nominees. I mean, RFK and his brainworms to run HHS, which is a giant, huge bureaucracy. I mean, these new nominations are as bad as we could have expected.
Yeah, the recent ones are absolutely designed to do exactly what he said he wanted to do, which is tear down these operations, remove public health limits, regulations, pursue political investigations. Let's be clear about this. They want to pursue political investigations of perceived enemies, people they think that attack them, whether or not that's valid or not, whether or not there are charges or not. And there's some history to this too, because remember, Trump wanted the investigations and prosecution of Clinton. Remember that when he was in office, Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Global Foundation. Okay, so these are things that have happened before. And so let's be very clear about it. That is real. The political investigations, Trump's efforts to weaponize the Justice Department, that is a real thing. Absolutely. What the other institutions, which is why we have 3 branches of government, thank God. That's why the founding fathers built it this way. What they do is yet to be seen. And this could change things. But yes, it's where we are.
I love your optimism, but I do not share it, my friend. I do not share it. All right. That's the only story that's really mattered. So we're not going to go deep into other stuff. But I do want to get into our roundtable with Matt Laslo and Pablo Manriquez, two Hill journalists, your boys. Have a little conversation about what's going on there and what's going on in the media.
It's time to go in the huddle.
That is a lot of faces on the screen. We are pleased to welcome Matt Laslo, a freelance congressional reporter, also writes his own Substack, and Pablo Manriquez, longtime congressional reporter, writer at migrantinsider.com. Gentlemen, welcome to our little parade here. Let me just take temperatures first. How's everyone feeling post-election?
What year is it? What month is it?
I mean, everybody's paying attention again. So news. I mean, oddly enough, I think newsrooms should do pretty well. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, you guys have been in the game a lot longer than I have.
Made news great again.
I feel like we're finally having the conversations that we should have had in the election.
Yeah.
Like after a week of Trump picks and everyone flipping out, it's like, oh yeah, guys, he ran on those policies. He told us he was going to pick RFK Jr. So now this guy is falling. Okay, Sarasa.
Everybody who got the message that like he's going to make you all rich. Everybody who's paying $7 for a dozen eggs and heard the messaging now finds out that what he was really telling everybody was there's going to be brain worms for everyone.
I still have so many questions about the brain worms.
I'm still not rich, so I don't know what happened.
How do you let a guy with brain worms be a cabinet secretary?
Drop the dead dog at the like the Senate health confirmation hearing.
Oh, the dead
bear cub.
Well, come on, I bet a couple of Biden's cabinet secretaries have brain worms. I'm looking at you, Pete.
Yeah, they probably. I can think of a few.
He lived in Indiana for a long time. I mean, let's be real. This is the thing and we talked about this in our first segment. I'd be interested in you guys' take. Is that it felt like it wasn't normie class by any means with the first set of cabinet secretaries, but it wasn't insane.
Yeah,
it's like these were the Susie Wiles picks, right? And then at some point all hell broke loose. I don't know who got maybe Laura Loomer, got a crowbar and broke into Mar-a-Lago or something. But what happened? Where did this go wrong?
But if you go back to the start of this week, the way the media, a term I hate, but the way cable and the infotainment networks were covering Elise Stefanik for the UN, Lee Zeldin at EPA, they covered it as if, sky is falling. And so the warning is, guys, we are becoming the media that cried wolf. And so once Gates was actually picked, yep, that's a wolf. Just ask his fellow Republicans. They're the ones who say he's a wolf. And so I think it is definitely a trial balloon, both testing the media reaction, but then also really testing Republican senators, putting them on the spot. And we'll see. But this is a big test out of the gates. And I think the calculation is Trump doesn't think he's going to get it. He's just going to make Gates a deputy or make him like the justice czar. Or put him at Doge, which is nothing, but with Musk and company. And so, yeah, I think it's a big troll of us all. And we have to take the bait on this one.
A big test out of the gates.
Yeah.
No, I think it was interesting. There was actually a quick yesterday, the New York Times released, I guess you would say, interview they did with Tom Homan, the incoming border czar. That they did the interview at CPAC on March 1st, 2023. And now they're releasing it. And I'm thinking to myself, well, of course people are going to be surprised about what's coming if you've been sitting on what they said they were going to do for the last 18 months. And I asked the Times media relations team, I asked the reporter, and what I've been able to gather so far is that the reporter, his name is Asted, and he pushed for this to be released at the time, but it was killed up top. It was just we, don't want to, what do you say, platform the extremists, and
Well,
Tom
a year
Homan
and a
is
half
certainly
ago, Tom Homan
extremist.
was a who cares, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a Lincoln Day event in a medium-sized county in Illinois. Must have been 23. Nobody cared, and now it's just like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, here's the family separation guy. Hello, now he's relevant again.
Yeah, now he has all the power to do whatever he wants. Because immigration
Pablo-
law is very much an executive prerogative, or immigration
Pablo,
policy.
was he on your radar? Was he on your radar from back in the Obama days, or when did he get on your radar?
So Homan first got on my radar back in the Obama days. Obama gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So this is not somebody
Really?
who,
right.
yeah, I mean, he's been validated by Democrats. Wow. And then when he took over for the Trump administration, I think it was under Nielsen, when Nielsen was DHS secretary, he was the interim ICE director. So the implementation of the family separation policies were very much Homan's baby, So now you have, and I think it's kind of interesting. I wrote about this at Migrant Insider. You have Homan and Miller, right? And now underneath them, Noem as the DHS secretary. And one of the things I think, if there is one thing that migrants and people who care about migrants should be hopeful about, and it's the same with these efficiency people, is that Trump likes giving people duplicated responsibilities and letting them fight it out for his amusement. Yes. And I kind of feel like that's a little bit the case on the immigration policy. It's certainly the case with Ramaswamy and Musk at their little Doge thing. Yeah. So, but yeah, beyond that, their methods are to implement fear by staking out schools, staking out churches, and stuff like that to make people afraid to come outside. And the question I have is, are the American people going to step up to Anne Frank migrants in their attics when they need to over the next 4 years? We'll see what the outcry is. But I would say that if there is a silver lining in all this, like I said at the beginning, people are definitely paying attention, and the relevance of people will bring them the truth, like Ask a Poll, right? That just bring them like unvarnished transcripts about what people are saying with questions that do catch them off guard and actually get them to say what's on their mind instead of just talking points. I think that the market for that is going to explode.
Yeah. It's, if you look at this, the answers here of what Trump is actually doing, Trump is doing what he said he would do, but the people who voted for him did not hear that because they were fed the campaign story about what he would do, which was he's going to make $1 million appear in your pocket by taxing the hell out of China. And that bifurcated campaign strategy worked incredibly well, because we all know this and we've been writing about this for months, for years now. It just didn't penetrate. It didn't get through for a multitude of reasons.
And that's kind of my big question, and that I've been asking Republicans all week. What is the mandate? Because he got the commanding 312 votes electoral college, I believe, and then won the popular vote. But he was not targeted. He was shotgun. And if you endured an entire one of his rallies, you're probably not shocked by a lot of the announcements this week that are shocking cable. But that's the thing from those rallies where he would go off on these tangents, but then would keep repeating it. Is that his mandate? I'm curious what you all think on this. And I think that's where we're going to see different fiefdoms within the Republican Party, especially the people at Heritage with Project 2025.
Yes.
They're going to each start claiming their little fiefdoms and pushing. We're kind of making him pony up on his promises. And he made a lot of crazy ones.
Well, the Gates.
I don't think there are fiefdoms, though. I think it's all just the king. It's all daddy. And everyone else gets in line.
No, there is. I mean, I'm going to do a hard spike on that. Sorry. No, there is. As I dive back into Trump world, I was downtown a couple of days ago and bumped into somebody I hadn't seen in a little while. And Trump world never changes, with the distinct exception of the people who are exiled or exile themselves. But there's Junior over here, there's Heritage, and the old conservatives here. Here's Roger Stone and Manafort in that world. Susie Wiles exists in her own bubble. These there are.
Room. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They have their buckets, but nobody has influence. He listens to the last person in the room occasionally, but in the end, they're always going to defer to the big orange man.
He's the final say. That's yes.
But don't forget, Trump doesn't care about policy at all. And so he's picking personalities. He's not really picking policy. And because he's so vague when it comes to his policies, that really empowers these cabinet secretaries and deputies and, names that even us political insiders have no idea who they are, but they're going to be so super empowered because Trump just delegates. And I think that's where those warring fiefdoms, like in the last administration, I had it from good sources that Trump was going to come out and endorse legalized marijuana. And it was going to happen. And then Kellyanne Conway got pushed out, and Mark Meadows was chief of staff. And Mark Meadows, his little Christian evangelical Southern self, was like, no, and ripped up that. And so something that was going to happen then became nothing just because Meadows trashed it, even though Kellyanne was wisely looking at the polls that show like 70% support. And that's where even though Trump opposes cannabis and drugs and substances, he would have gone with it just for the electoral boost. But Mark Meadows killed that. Yeah.
The speed bump, I think, in this administration right now that no one's talking about, but could be a really huge factor, actually, is the Supreme Court's decision to strike down the Chevron doctrine, because they're putting all these
interesting
cabinet secretaries in place, and they're putting all these agency heads in place. But the agencies have actually been very much defanged to the courts, and Durbin and Schumer have now appointed more judges than Trump did. So they're going to have like a very smooth path toward judicial nominations, it looks like, to some degree. But for the time being, the judges that have been put in place during the Democratic Senate majority, they are actually going to be much more powerful than the judges that were, at least during their before the Chevron doctrine was struck down. They're going to be more powerful. They're going to be more powerful than those initial Trump appointees. So the Chevron doctrine, I think, is going to be a really interesting speed bump. And it's interesting because that's not how it was presented, to go back to our original point, in the media. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like, okay, the Chevron doctrine is going to take away, our Pete Buttigieg's ability to do his job or whatever, right? But now it's also going to take away Kristi Noem's ability to do their jobs. Like, these other people that have been pointed as RFK Jr. isn't going to be able to run roughshod over HHS because the judges are going to be like, what is this brainworm guy doing? Sending us like seed oil, like unilateral seed oil thing. So
you just reminded me, this incoming 119th Congress, that's going to be the first post-Chevron Congress. And Chevron basically said, hey, these agencies, they can't write their own rules and regs. Congress needs to be very specific and precise in delegating, telling them which regulation to enact, etc. This is not a serious Congress. Like, look at the last Congress, or the current Congress, the 118th. Like, they shut down Congress itself for 3 weeks because of an internal Republican food fight.
Right.
And so now these people are going to be tasked with writing the dot and tittle of laws. That's kind of terrifying, but then also like my academic self is like, ooh, this is going to be an interesting case study. Can Congress do it? They haven't proven that in the last few decades.
Right.
Pablo,
CR after
how much
CR.
time you guys have spent on the Hill this week? I know Tom tries to
A lot.
because he's antisocial, but
I'm not antisocial. I live in a cave.
What's the mood? What's the mood on the Hill this week?
I felt like it was a frenzy. Yeah.
Republicans are giddy. Like, they got the keys. They're drunk on the sugar high. Democrats are depressed and bewildered. You still have the ghosts of Senator Bob Casey and John Tester walking around just depleted. Mitt Romney's like rearing to go. Wouldn't even answer my questions about Matt Gaetz. He's like, nope, not me. I'm retired. So there's a lot of different moods.
Wow.
Yeah, my sense was just what Laslo was saying just now. Like, Republicans are giddy, Democrats are kind of down, are downtrodden. But at least on the immigration beat, what I thought was interesting was that like I broke a so basically downtown advocates for the immigration movement were immediately circulating a list of things that that Biden can do to protect migrants before the Trump administration. And it wasn't something that I did get the sense that like the Democratic House reps especially are still licking their wounds. Like I was asking members sort of what migrants communities should do to protect, to prepare. And, AOC had a good answer. Delia Ramirez had a pretty good answer, and Veronica Escobar had a pretty good answer. But everybody else was just sort of like, you could tell they were still kind of walking around in the daze. And this is something that I feel like is pretty typical, perhaps not just of Democrats, but of any election loser, like the party that loses the election. They're still licking their wounds. There's still a lot of infighting. And I think that like if anything, the announcement of Rahm Emanuel as the DNC chair has demoralized them even further, because as everybody knows, he gutted the DCCC, during his time of chief of staff. It led to a rout during the midterm, during that first term Obama.
We're in 10?
10.
Well, he's also, but I mean, remember too, and granted, this was on the back of the Iraq War, but he was the one that led the Democrats back.
Yeah, he was
after
cheering
Gingrich in 6.
Something.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I just thought my sense was that people were kind of demoralized that he was coming back, that there were operatives that did better than expected. I think Chuck Rocha put his hat in. I've never been a big fan of the guy, but like he was kind of instrumental in getting Bernie over the line in Nevada and getting Gallego now over the line in Arizona. So, there were people that people are used to working with in a winning context. But what Emmanuel did was just like, it was before a lot of people who are currently serving are serving. So were serving. So it's like, they didn't, there's a lot of disillusionment, obviously, along the Democrat side. But the question is like, are they going to use these precious few days left of the Biden White House to torpedo what Trump can do? I remember when the rumor anyway was back when I was a kid in Missouri that when Clinton left the White House, they took all the W's out of the keyboards just in protest or whatever.
Not a rumor.
Like,
They did
It's a
that.
true story. That's a true story.
Well, the question is, are they going to figuratively and in policy and literally trash the place before Trump shows up? Or are they just going to like very smoothly hand the transition over, right?
Oh, what's the TikTok ban starts the day before inauguration?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that
There's not going to be any TikTok ban. Trump's like, look at all these views. I just got to say something into someone's phone and all these people like me. Oh, TikTok
or the
ain't going
divestiture,
nowhere.
I should say. Do you think they can actually? I mean, I also wonder about the pardons too. What pardons are coming from Biden?
There's a group called LULAC that is pushing for pardons for deported U.S. military veterans who served in combat. That's one that I think was really interesting because there's so many things that like Trump could do that would and Johnson could do to pick up the mantle. Like I was talking to Johnson in the hallway on Tuesday, and there's this resolution by Byron Donalds to rename the press gallery after Frederick Douglass. Now, black men obviously floated toward Trump a little bit more this election. So basically there's a lot of things that are kind of like symbolic things that they can do to thank these constituencies that they didn't expect, that conventional wisdom didn't expect to do as well, Trump to do as well with them. But it'll be curious to see if they are actually going to use this time, or they're going to continue licking their wounds till the inauguration and beyond, which is sort of like the Democratic playbook. Unfortunately, like if you're a Democrat.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, guys, and I appreciate you. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just curious, because the Obama administration keeps coming up in this, especially from you, Pablo. And I'm just kind of remembering when Congressman Luis Gutierrez, former Chicago congressman, he said when Obama got the 60 senators, they promised immigration reform. And he said in closed doors with Pelosi and company, they said, no, we're not going to carry through with our promise to the Latino community until you bring us 60 or 80 Republican votes, because we need cover. Even though we promised this and ran on it and won on it, we need cover. And then boom, what did we have? The Tea Party wave of 2010, where Democrats got knocked out anyway, even without even trying to keep their promise. So kind of think, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Pablo. It seems like that distrust in the Democratic Party from the Latino community kind of started happening there. And then especially you saying Obama gave a medal to Homan. Like how much of what we're seeing now is the Democratic Party in shambles is tied to the Obama administration.
Well, I think that the thing about the Latino vote and why it was so unexpected this term in particular, right, was because it was never really like sort of prodded. It was just assumed that like because Latinos will be the biggest targets for deportation, that like no one's going to go for it. But I will say this, like if I was, my post-election recap is I'm proud of my people because we are now the biggest swing vote ever, right? Like when moving forward, no one knows what we're going to do. And all of us are pissed off, right? So, you know what I mean?
Pablo's a wild man, yo.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of like, what is anybody doing for us? A lot of us, too, come from countries that have dozens and dozens of political parties. And the only way to govern is through coalition. So a president might emerge and the president is obviously going to be, like in Chile, we have something like 35 political parties. So if a president gets elected, he gets elected on a coalition mandate. And if the coalition falls apart, another coalition can be put back together. So I think that there's a lot of like historical roots there too, where it's just like a lot of Latinos, like I was born under a dictatorship where parties didn't matter, right? But now the country where I was born has dozens and dozens of political parties. This two-party system, to like a lot of us who, and our parents especially, is just bunk. It's a joke, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's just two parties, that's it. Like, what? So of course they're going to choose the ones
themselves. That's why the founders themselves rejected a two-party system and then instantly created one in the first Congress.
Right. But you guys are dropping a lot of Illinois members of Congress. We've got Adelia Ramirez drop, a Luis Gutierrez drop, a Rahm Emanuel drop. So I'm just going to give you like a Bob Dole and a Lane Evans, just to throw a couple of my state, or my old boss Rodney Davis, just to give Illinois some love. Nice. Before we let you go, guys, there's a story I'm sure Tom's going to want to talk about it in the LA Times, or with the LA Times, that their billionaire owner who is probably doing a little sucking up to Trumpism here is changing things, and I think we've seen that the media maybe missed the pitch again on what's going on in the real world. You know, anything between the Appalachians and the Rockies, and I'd be interested in your take, especially as guys who are often that DC bubble. All three of you. I'm in the Midwest. Hello, thank God. What did the media country, and what's the health of it?
We weren't a part of the conversation. The American people were having a conversation, whether it was forced on them through Fox or et cetera. But the scariest numbers to me coming out of 2020 was when Trump called us in the media the enemy of the people. It worked. Like he realized Rush Limbaugh's long dream to, just do away with us. The MSM, the mainstream media, which then Newt Gingrich came to power on that message. Like, but they just like chipped away at the media. Trump came in with a sledgehammer and just abolished us. And you see that, I think it was Gallup, 50% of the American public doesn't just think we're fake news. 50% of the American public thinks the media is actively lying to them. Jesus. And so I think that's where, heading into this election, a lot of people weren't like they distrusted CNN, they distrusted MSNBC, distrusted Fox, and so they went, to all these platforms, all these podcasts that were off our radars, off my radar. I'm on True Social, but not enough. And now that X kind of became 4chan, they've been empowered and been yelling these, so not having a conversation, but yelling these things that, I'm sorry, they won. Like that misinformation was in the ether more than our accurate. And because, like, remember, there was great reporting in this election. There's been great reporting the past few cycles, but we've been tuned out, and that's what
they bought the means of distribution. I mean, that's Elon Musk. Elon Musk not only bought X, he bought every streaming platform that automatically integrates into X. So he bought a podcasting machine. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Just yesterday, Alex Jones had 344,000 live followers on X, which I just caught my eye, but I'm like, oh,
Yeah, the actual
Sorry,
fake
Pablo.
news. Remember when fake news was a real term? It is a real term that Trump co-opted from the beginning of 2016, because what was real fake news applied to? Pizzagate. Stories that are not real. Seth Rich. That's fake.
Yeah.
That's what
No,
Trump
speaking of-
masterfully did all this election. He just took Democrats' talking points on democracy or whatever and just didn't even try to be clever about it. If they called him Hitler, he'd say, "You're Hitler." If they said,
Yeah.
"You're dangerous for democracy," he'd say, "No, you're dangerous for democracy." And it worked.
Yeah, it's not the message, it's
Pablo.
the distribution.
Speaking of the Trump campaign message, as we're recording this early Friday afternoon, Politico reporting that Stephen Chung, the main spokesman from the Trump campaign, will be White House communications director.
Yay.
Yeah.
That'll be the most combative White House communications shop in history.
Really?
I mean,
I don't
maybe-
know him.
Yeah.
I know Stephen. He's in person, he's not the quote like the quotes. So let's see
Well, the
how
quotes
he
are
behaves.
comically combative.
Yeah.
It's odd. Like, I think that one of the, like, I'm always looking for silver linings here because I know, like, I have a strong suspicion of what's coming. But, you know, I'm really glad that Fox News has always stood by us. Just generally anybody who loses access, anybody who's like going to be threatened to lose access. I think that's going to be a thing moving forward. That's going to be the threat. And even like the, you know, Laslo and I got a buddy now at Epoch Times and a couple of other places, like colleagues that, you know, I hope that like the solidarity in the press corps rings out because the, you know, that's going to be necessary because I tell you this much, in Pinochet's Chile, right, there was no press access, there was no nothing. And a lot of times when these like foreign delegations come to cover their like guy giving a speech, like Modi or whoever, they're always astonished by how much access we have. And that ultimately is the role of the press. Now, as a Latino and as somebody who covers immigration, as a migrant myself, I don't think CNN did themselves any favors. Like I got no real information from them on my beat. And now we're finding out that the New York Times too was burying really important information for years at a time. So I hope that, you know, the solidarity amongst the press plays out once, like, you know, Daily Caller and Breitbart renew their passes like they did during the last Trump administration to kind of like amplify their points, that those of us that are going to go hard at the powers that be, you know, that we maintain like that sort of solidarity of the press, because, you know, what goes on TV with the pundits and all that other bullshit is not the same as the guys who are holding these guys accountable in the hallways, right? But unfortunately, we've all been lumped into the same group. They see no difference. Like the American people see no difference between the hackery of a David Axelrod and the good, hard shoe leather work of the rest of us. So somehow we need to make that distinction. And I think that another key thing that's going to be absolutely important as these audiences rise, because I mean, like I said, like Migrant Insider's on fire right now. You know, I had originally created it thinking that there was going to be this big outcry over illegal immigrant voting allegations that are completely false, so that we would be able to whack-a-mole with Migrant Insider after the election. Well, of course, those allegations evaporated the moment he won because they were always untrue. But the audience for like what comes next all of a sudden just exploded. So, you know, as long as I think that like outlets like the Post, who have like been over reliant on a sugar daddy, Semaphore is now doing layoffs too. They also are like over reliant on a sugar daddy.
Wow.
I hope that they kind of learn from their mistakes when they didn't have any money and they didn't have any attention under Kamala Harris and hire a sales team. You know, that they have the money, they have tens of millions of dollars and no salespeople. So, you know, there are some adjustments that are going to need to be made in media and moving forward. But I think for people like us who are independent, who have audiences who know who we are, specifically who we are, not just by name, not just by outlet, not just like, you know, I have a WashingtonPost.com email address, so you have to listen to me. But people who are like, yo, these guys are in the sticks, they're getting in the weeds, they're getting they're getting the information that no one else ever even thought to get for us, right? I think that we're actually going to do pretty well.
Yeah.
So yesterday I saw Senator Josh Hawley, you know, scrawling like 10 reporters around him, and he goes, "Wait, are you still with the KC Star?" And the guy goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, I'm not answering your questions." And then, so like that is a solid regional reporter. And full disclosure, I've been on the board at the Regional Reporters Association since 2009. So like, that's my guy. But it literally was so astounding. Like, wait, that's a good, legitimate reporter, and you probably hate his publication because they did what's called journalism.
We're going to get a lot of that.
Yeah, that's like Gates with Vanity Fair. Gates won't talk to Vanity Fair either. Like I've written a lot of freelance pieces for Vanity Fair in the last year, and Gates, the only time he would ever talk to us was when he got the chance to screw McCarthy. But as Attorney General, like I think the big question we need to keep in mind is once the security state is in place, and once whoever the interim is, assuming it's Gates or whoever, how much are they going to come after us? Is I think like a legitimate question. I don't think that's just like virtue signaling or like woe is me. I think that they're going to have the capabilities, and given what Laslo was talking about, the unpopularity of the press, there's actually going to be like at least like a shadow mandate to screw us as much as possible.
Let's not talk about things negative.
No, not yet, guys.
But don't forget, it was the Obama administration that actually threatened to jail reporters and went after a lot of us. His record was a lot worse than Trump's last one. Just saying. True.
All right, 3 independent quality reporters: Pablo Manriquez, Matt Laslo, Tom LoBianco. You know him, and then I'm just the hack over here. But guys, we appreciate the conversation about the state of the media and what's going on in DC, and appreciate you guys weighing in. And people, go read their stuff, Google them, go find them, read them, subscribe to them. If you can buy a subscription, buy a subscription.
Ask a poll, Matt Laslo, Migrant Insider, Pablo Manriquez.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck. Good night and good luck.
Seriously.
All right. Thanks to Matt Laslo, Pablo Manriquez, your boys, your guys, you weird hill Denzians.
We're not hill rats, okay?
I didn't say rats. You said rats.
Yeah. Rodentia.
The boys in the DC bubble, we'll put it that way. Appreciate their thoughts and their conversation. Good stuff from them. We appreciate you listening and joining us as well here on The Ground Game. Follow us on Twitter, like us, subscribe, all that stuff.
Threads and Blue Sky, and especially YouTube.
I think I now have a Blue Sky. I don't know what it means.
You don't have to. I got us a Blue Sky.
Okay.
We are nonpartisan. We are neutral. All right. So it's, we cover all of them. The only thing we don't do.
If you meant that, you'd put us on Truth Social, and that ain't happening.
We don't do 4chan or 8chan or actual neo-Nazi crap.
But for those of you that are watching on YouTube, go and click that little thumbs up button and make a comment and subscribe to the channel so that we can help grow this thing as we try to bring you a different view of politics across our fruited plain. So, Tom, I appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
You too, baby.
You're on The Ground Game.